And welcome to Tribe Talk, where we take sermon to conversation. And this past week, we had Pastor Whitney share with us Legacy Movement. It had to be you. What an incredible message from this past week with Pastor Whitney. I've got two incredible guests, Brian and Amber. But before we get to them, let's take a look at this clip from this past week's episode.
God isn't a genie who gives us our every wish, but does he heal? Yes. Is he our Redeemer? Yes. Does he use it all for good? Yes. The same week I was healed from seizures was the same week I lost the first baby. The same week I lost the baby, my sister-in-law found out she was pregnant, and a month later, my sister found out she was also pregnant. All of it was difficult and hard, but it was not to discourage me. He used that to encourage me. Don't let watching other people's miracles make you doubt God or make it doubt your miracle. Let it activate your faith to know that he is a miracle worker.
And welcome back. Brian and Amber, I'm so glad to have you join us today. We were so fortunate to have Pastor Whitney on stage sharing an incredible message this past week. I love her title, It Had to Be You. And she just really, brought down the message in a very, systematic approach. And it really made a great, powerful impact. And one of the things I love about Pastor Whitney is her testimony. She has gone through some incredible struggles, and yet her faith and leaning in towards God is just as steady as it ever has been, no matter what kind of struggle she goes through. And so she shared her testimony with us and her story and everything. And then her first point in her message from this past Sunday's sermon was, only God can determine what's good. Now we're always thinking, hey, this should be, or this could be the good thing. And I love it. She talked about Philippians 4:11 through 13, where Paul talks about, hey, I've gone through all these things, but I've learned to be content no matter what's going on. And one of the things that Pastor Whitney brought up was choose to struggle well, choose to wait well, choose to suffer well. And I thought that was just so powerful. And Brian and Amber, I wanted to ask you guys, what were your thoughts on, Pastor Whitney's message on, only God can determine what's good and struggle well and everything that she was bringing in that first point. Brian, we'll start with you. What was kind of your takeaway?
I felt like she was describing my life story. So it was great because, as you know, I've experienced a lot of loss myself through losing my mom and then my children and then a spouse. So through that, I've had to learn to struggle well. When I first lost my children, I wasn't walking with God, and so I knew God. I knew there was a God. I didn't know him personally. I didn't have a relationship with him. So I had to learn to struggle well. And coming here to Elevate has been just a godsend to be able to learn how to do that, how to struggle well, how to lean on God and know that my life verse is Romans 8:28. So, I know that he's going to work all things for good. And fortunately for me, I've gotten to see that through my life experiences and then being able to help others who experience similar losses. He's put me in position to be able to speak into them and love on them through that and let them know, hey, there's another side. It's not just this dark, gloomy season you're in. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. Just keep walking and keep leaning on God to be there.
That is so good. And Brian, I love how you talked about, the things that you went through, the experiences that you went through, you struggled well through those. Now in the moment, probably feels like it probably is the end of the world. It's the worst thing in the world. But I love how you talk about there's more on the other side. And now you are able to help people that are going through similar things or difficulties because you've gone through those things, and God's using those terrible things for good, where you're able to help people through their own struggles. And I absolutely love that. Amber, what was your kind of take on struggling well, wait well, and suffer well, and knowing that God chooses what's good? What was your takeaway from that?
So for me, it spoke deeply. I was a single mom for many years when the kids were little, and I grew up in the church, so I knew that, this is how things are supposed to be. You're supposed to pray, you're supposed to believe. But of course, I struggled with some of that as I raised the kids. But watching them grow up here and learning the same things that I was learning when they were in kids ministry really helped stabilize learning how to struggle well, learning how to trust, learning how to pray, learning how to get through those tough situations. So it spoke very deeply to me.
That is so good. And what I think is powerful, Amber, where you talked about they're growing up in the house. And even if we're still in the house, we're going to have difficulties. But being in the house, we know that we've got backup, we've got support, so that when we do struggle, we're going to struggle well. We're going to, suffer well, knowing that we're here in the house, and we're learning these things here with, the love-based leadership culture that we have here at Elevate Life Church. And it truly is. We all go through different levels of difficulty, different levels of struggle. And if we do it well, Brian, I love how you said it, we'll come out on the other side with something good. And both of you guys, I know, just because I know you guys personally, have gone through things very, very difficult, which without God would probably take you out. But because you guys are here in the house and you're putting your faith in God, just like Pastor Whitney did, all her struggles, she's leaned on Jesus, she's able to get on the other side of it and recognize God's got something good for me. And I love what you guys are sharing. The second point that Pastor Whitney brought up, which I thought was really good, was when miracles don't come like we hoped, God still comes like he always planned. And there were certain things that Pastor Whitney brought up, like, if our expectation of God is that he's just going to do everything that I want, it's probably not the right God, right? And we need to repent, and we need to, lean on the right God. And there were two things that she talked about kind of within that section, was the two toxic expectations. And I thought this was interesting, where the first toxic expectation is that people will do certain things or behave the way we want them to. And then the second thing she talked about was that things should go a certain way, the way we want them to go. And I thought that was really interesting how, we all want things to go our way, and we all want, the people in our lives to do the things that we want them to do, but that's not always the case. And so one of the things she also said was those will be blessed because of our favor. And if we just understand that people will be people, things are going to happen. But if we're patient and we go through it, just like Joseph, and she brought up, Genesis 39, 2-5, all the things that Joseph went through. Even though he was thrown in a pit, he was a prisoner, just because people around him, they were blessed. They had his favor. I was just curious, kind of, what is your takeaway? What are your thoughts on that whole piece about, our toxic expectations, people being blessed because they're around us? What is kind of your takeaway, Brian, on that one?
So a lot of it for me is things that I've been taught here. Pastor talks about control what you can control. Well, we can only control ourselves. We don't have any control over other people. So if we expect them to do what we want them to do, we're going to have failed expectations a lot of times. So there's no use even trying to do that. It's just lean on God and know that whatever is happening, God's going to work for good. And then also, a rising tide lifts all ships. And so if everyone's being elevated at the same time, then we all rise. But if you're worried about somebody else getting elevated and you're trying to do something to knock them off their platform or something, then you're not going to rise either. But if you lift them up, then you're going to rise with them. So it's best to just help each other out and encourage and celebrate people. I mean, we're a tribe, right? So a tribe helps each other and they work together. So that's what we should do is, like God called us to do, is lift everyone up and love each other and not try to compete. It's not a competition. I'm not competing with you. I'm not competing with her or anybody else. It's one tribe. We're all working together for a common goal, which is to be the best we can be for God.
So good. And I love the point that you made there, Brian, and right out of the gate is you can only control what you can control, and that's yourself. And when you do that well, then you start encouraging and you're lifting other people along your journey. That is so agree with you, and I think that's so powerful. Amber, what is kind of your takeaway on those, those toxic expectations? We want things to go our way, but What is it about us being just wherever we're at, being a favor, being a blessing for everything around us? What does that mean to you, or what's your takeaway on that one?
So when we were in service listening to that, the thing that kept coming to me was when we were going through the journey of when our daughter was a missing person. And, you know, I wanted it to go a certain way. I wanted her to be found now. I didn't want to wait through that process. So it was learning, you know, it's God's timing, not my timing. And I had to really work through that. And if it wasn't for him and our home group and the people that were standing with us and praying with us and believing that with me and reminding me on a daily, you know, basis, he's got her and it's his timing, not mine. That's what spoke to me that entire message was, you know, the miracle is coming, but I have to wait on his timing, not my timing.
Oh my gosh, Amber, I think what you just said there is so profound, because you know, I can imagine of any parent, if their child went missing, you would want it to happen in your timing. You would want your child back. But I love, Amber, I am moved at how you can say, look, yes, I want my child back, and it's in God's time. And I think that is such an incredible testimony of your being able to lean into God, lean into Jesus, and understand that what I want is just what I want, but ultimately what I want is what God wants, and it's in his timing. And I think that is such a profound testimony, Amber, what you shared in just a brief moment. Incredible. Brian and Amber, it's been so amazing to be able to connect with you on Tribe Talk here. You guys are just, I love chatting with you both. I could probably talk to you guys for hours on this past Sunday service from Pastor Whitney. But thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us today on Tribe Talk. Make sure you connect with a friend, a family member, even your neighbor. Just go knock on their door next door, invite them to come over, watch service, because nothing makes service come to life than connecting with other people and talking about it, talking through it. Just amazing what you'll get from it. Thank you so much for joining us today on Tribe Talk. Make sure you follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and we will see you on the next episode. God bless.